Sometimes it seems that the 1980s have remained somewhere in another life, like frames on an old VHS tape, warm, a little blurred, but painfully familiar. Those were the years when everything felt different, brighter, slower, real. The air smelled like asphalt after rain, and the plastic of new cassettes and happiness often fit into one evening at the TV with a box of pizza. Childhood back then was not measured in gigabytes and subscriptions. It was in the sunspots on the carpet, in the rustling of stickers, and in the special sound of soda cans being opened. You remember what it was like to wait for Saturday mornings for cartoons, rewind tape with a pencil, and carry lunch to school in a plastic container with Spider-Man 2, right? Here are 20 feelings that only someone who grew up in America in the 1980s will understand. The feeling of the sun on your face while riding in the back seat of a car with vinyl seats that stick to your legs. In the summer, the back seat of my old car was both comfortable and slightly uncomfortable. The vinyl seats would get hot in the sun, and the leather would get warm and sometimes even stick to my legs a little. This warmth was special, not just heat, but something alive that felt like a part of summer itself. The sun's rays illuminated everything around me, and the breeze seeping through the ajar window played with my hair and rustled in my ears. The back seat was a place for daydreaming and observation, where time seemed to slow down. Through the glass, you could see familiar yards, passing cars, and the occasional passerby, all part of one big summer adventure. The vinyl upholstery, though sticky, added to the atmosphere of the time, with its unique texture and smell that is forever linked to childhood. The sun created a special play of light and shadow, reflecting off the dashboard and parting the air through the open windows. Sometimes friends would ride behind, laughing and sharing stories, creating a sense of true togetherness. At times like this, it felt like the whole world was an open road in endless summer. Sticky fingers after ice cream from the ice cream truck, and the music from the ice cream truck. Ice cream truck music sounded on warm evenings as a signal for the start of the festivities. Its tinkling melodies ran through the streets, making everyone excited. As soon as this music sounded, the whole yard seemed to freeze. Everyone rushed outside to be the first to get to the truck. The ice cream itself was not only delicious, but also special. It melted quickly, leaving a sticky sweetness on the fingers that could not be wiped off just like that. My fingers stuck to the paper cups and wrappers, and that sticky feeling added a slight sense of naughtiness. The ice cream from the van ranged from classic vanilla and chocolate to colorful ice sticks and fruit lollipops. These moments filled with sounds, smells, and tastes became part of the summer mood, forever etched in our memories. Sometimes, while waiting for the ice cream, the noise of a spiral tape playing on the van's speakers could be heard, adding to the magic of the experience. Children would rush to exchange their change for the coveted sweet, and adults would smile as they remembered their childhood. This sound and taste stayed with everyone who heard the ice cream truck tune and felt the stickiness of the ice cream on their fingers at least once. The titillating thrill of video rentals when you hold a VHS box with a brightly colored cover in your hands. The tickling excitement of video rentals when you hold a VHS box with a brightly colored cover, hoping the tape isn't rewound all the way through. Video rentals were a kind of temple for moviegoers. The shelves were bursting with VHS boxes, each promising thrilling adventures, comedies, or horrors. Choosing a movie was a ritual, sometimes watching trailers or asking the cashier what was worth picking up. The feel of the tapes in our hands was special, heavy, with brightly colored covers, often adorned with photos of the actors or scenes from the movie. There were concerns that the tape might have been rewound or scratched too many times already, which could ruin the viewing experience. The video rental was the place where plans for the evening were made, the anticipation of quiet hours with a movie at home, encased in popcorn and lamplight. It was a little holiday. Pick a movie, buy a drink, turn on the cassette player, and immerse yourself in another world, oblivious to reality. The VHS box had a distinctive smell of plastic and paper, which heightened the sense of anticipation and expectation. Occasionally, stickers labeled "New Release" or "Recommended" would appear on the cover, making my heart beat faster. The whole process, from selection to inclusion, was part of a special ritual that is almost unheard of nowadays. The smell of new plastic from a newly unpacked toy from the He-Man or Barbie series. Plastic toys from the 80s had a distinctive smell, a mixture of chemistry and something new, promising many hours of exciting play. Opening a box with a new He-Man or Barbie, there was a special energy, a new figure, perfectly painted and with no signs of use. That smell was an integral part of the joy. It spoke of the beginning of the adventures that were unfolding in the imagination. Each toy had unique designs and details: muscles for He-Man, hair for Barbie, accessories and clothes that could be changed. The plastic was hard but pleasant to the touch, and sometimes slightly cold right after unpacking. Memories of the smell of new toys take you back to a time when the world seemed vast and full of possibilities, and each new toy was a treasure. Unpacking was accompanied by the rustle of the wrapping paper and the squeak of the plastic coming to life in my hands. The figures were made with great care. Each part had its own story and its own place in the game universe. The aroma of the new plastic became a symbol of childhood, forever imprinted in the memory of those who grew up in that time. What a heartbreak it was when you were almost through a level on Nintendo, but someone yanked the joystick wire. In those days, game consoles weren't portable, and the joystick was connected to the console by a thick cable that could easily get caught on furniture or accidentally yanked out. Every time the screen froze or the hero found himself in a desperate situation, the tension would reach its limit. Nearly reaching the end of a level meant investing hours of patience and practice, and the occasional jerk of a wire ruined it all in seconds. The sound of an explosion or playthrough would tear you away from the virtual world, bringing you back to reality with a bitter sense of annoyance. The joystick wire was a thin thread that, when held in your hands, you could feel everything from joy to despair. Nintendo games were simple yet incredibly addictive, each new level a challenge. The twitching of a wire made it feel unfair, as if all the hard work had been undone by one random mistake. It often led to fights between friends or brothers who wanted to play at the same time. At the same time, it taught patience and the ability to negotiate, because every minute of the game was worth its weight in gold. Joystick and its wire are symbols of an era when video games were still something new and amazing. Their physical form gave every game moment a special tangibility. A small element like a wire could affect the mood and outcome of an evening. Despite the inconvenience, the games brought people together and created a unique sense of community. Almost passing a level but being defeated is one of those moments that is remembered for a lifetime. Game nights with Nintendo were little adventures full of emotion and excitement. When the wire stayed in place and the game ran smoothly, it seemed like anything was possible. These memories involved joy, frustration, and friendly arguments, the full gamut of feelings that define childhood. And it was these moments that made Nintendo an iconic 80s phenomenon. The dry, dusty air of the school gym and the squeak of sneakers on the parquet mixed with the smell of deodorant and weak air conditioning. The gym at school was a special place where everyone could feel excitement and fatigue at the same time. The air was dry and slightly dusty because the ventilation was far from ideal, and the windows were often closed to avoid noise from the street. The squeak of sneakers on the parquet created a rhythmic accompaniment to gym classes and sports competitions. The sound of footsteps mixed with breathing, which grew louder with intense exercise. The smell of deodorant on classmates' bodies and the faint aroma of air conditioning gave the atmosphere a specific spice. The gym was hot and the humidity rarely exceeded comfortable levels, making breathing somewhat difficult. Flashes of light through the windows and lamps created contrasts on the floors and walls. Teachers whose voices sounded loud and clear directed movements and enforced discipline. Sometimes an old basketball stand with a shabby net stood in the corner of the gymnasium, a reminder of countless games and competitions. The floor was covered in paraffin to prevent slipping, but there was still a creaking sound underfoot. The gym was a place where friendships were forged, competition was fostered, and learning to be a team. All these details, the smell, the sound, the lights, created a unique atmosphere of growing up in school. Moments of victories and defeats, laughter and rebukes were imprinted in the memory. In this dusty, warm air of the gymnasium, live childhood dreams of victories and new achievements. And although years later few people remembered the little things, it was here that the first real love for sports was born. The gym was a kind of theater of life, where everyone played his role. These details created a special feeling of belonging to something bigger. Every time we returned to our memories of school, the atmosphere of the gym came alive with a special force. The click and jiggle of the TV when you change channels manually by turning the wheel with a loud click, clack, clack. TVs of the 80s didn't have remotes, and changing channels was a matter of real skill. The smooth rotation of the wheel was accompanied by a loud and crunchy clunk-clunk sound that filled the room. Sometimes you had to turn it several times to get to the right channel, and at that moment the anticipation was mixed with a slight irritation. The slightest awkward movement could take you back to the previous channel, forcing you to start over. The channels were not always clearly tuned, and there were often interference, streaks, and noise that became a familiar background. The TV shook slightly with each flick of the switch, as if coming to life in the viewer's hands. Changing channels could be accompanied by familiar screensavers and commercials that were part of everyday life. It was all a physical experience to hear, see, and feel the controls that were now replaced by silent buttons. The process of changing channels became a small ritual where every click was important. Sometimes, while waiting for the right channel, they would start guessing what would be shown, discussing upcoming programs. Flashes of color and the sounds of TV programs became part of the overall atmosphere of the evening. Old televisions with a large case and a glass screen created a feeling of reliability and solidity. Everything around was filled with homeliness and predictability. Despite its simplicity, the process gave a sense of control and interaction with technology. 80s tech had its own character and features that now seem almost magical. Changing channels was a small adventure where every sound and movement mattered. The TV seemed to have a life of its own, and every changeover added to that feeling. These moments kept the connection to the past and created a unique atmosphere. Sound and movement became symbols of a time when technology was tangible and understandable. It's a nice thrill when your favorite Van Halen or Madonna song comes on the radio in School of Rock and you catch the beat with your foot. Radio in the 80s was the main source of music, and each song could change the mood of an entire day. Hearing your favorite Van Halen hit or a new Madonna track on the waves of the School of Rock was a thrilling experience. The excitement was heightened when the DJ's voice announced the title of the song, and then the first chords began to play. In the rhythm of the music began to swing a leg, sing along, and just enjoy the moment. Such songs became the soundtrack to everyday life, trips, walks, and meetings with friends. Radio added a sense of community, knowing that many people were listening to the same hits at the same time. On cassette recorders and Walkmans, tracks from the airwaves were quickly recorded to listen to over and over again. Radio became a place of discovery. New bands, unexpected hits, and the voices that accompanied each day. Music came from speakers in kitchens, cars, and rooms, bringing generations together. Moments when a favorite song began to play created a sense of happiness and lightness. The music of Van Halen and Madonna embodied the spirit of freedom and change that was in the air in the 80s. These tracks inspired, made you dream and move forward. Radio remained one of the few ways to stay on top of music. From school breaks to parties, songs accompanied and energized life. When a favorite tune was playing, it seemed like the whole world slowed down and became a little brighter. These memories are about the joy of discovery, the power of music, and the simple joys of life. Music was a language that everyone understood, without words or explanations, and in every chord sounded the atmosphere of the era, full of drive and spirit of adventure. Radio was a bridge between the past and the present, preserving unforgettable emotions. Saturday morning cartoon screensaver gives me goosebumps. This especially when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Thundercats are on TV. The Saturday morning cartoon screensaver was something special. Bright colors, energetic music, and fast-paced scenes. The TV, usually calm and quiet, suddenly came to life, filled with sounds and movement that grabbed attention. Many hours a week, the children waited for just this time to immerse themselves in a world of adventure and fantasy. When the Ninja Turtles or Thundercats appeared on the screen, the atmosphere was filled with drive and energy. Heroes were not just cartoon characters. They became real friends, symbols of strength, courage, and justice. Each episode was filled with dynamics and unexpected turns of the plot, which did not let you tear yourself away from the screen. The screensaver set the tone for the whole day, evoking joy and impatience. Sounds, music, and images were quickly fixed in the memory, becoming part of childhood and creating a sense of celebration. Cartoons were aired every Saturday morning, and it was a kind of ritual. They united generations because parents often watched them together with their children. It made the room feel cozy and warm, creating a sense of security and home comfort. The backdrop was so memorable that it could give you goosebumps just by hearing the first notes. Musical themes and characters often became part of conversations, games, and off-screen creativity. These cartoons set styles and tastes for years to come, shaping the culture of childhood. Heroes became idols and role models. There was always the noise of Saturday mornings in the background, the voices of siblings, street calls, and household chores. The whole atmosphere of Saturday morning with cartoons was unique and unforgettable. Such moments formed the first vivid memories of freedom and joy. Cartoons were a window to another world where good always won and adventure was waiting around every corner. They became a cultural phenomenon that united children's hearts. The crunch of new acid-wash jeans and the squeak of leather Reebok sneakers worn for the first time to school. The new acid-wash jeans made a distinctive sound with every movement, as if the fabric was telling its own story. This crunch was heard in school corridors and courtyards, where teenagers sought to stand out with their bright and fashionable clothes. Leather Reebok sneakers fresh off the store shelf squeaked with every step, emphasizing their freshness and new life. These sneakers were more than just shoes. They symbolized status and belonging to youth culture. To wear them on the first day of school was to show off, a statement of style and confidence. Acid wash created the effect of scuffing and uniqueness of each pair of jeans, making the clothes lively and individual. Meetings with friends and classmates took place in an atmosphere of sounds. The crunch of fabric and the squeak of soles created a kind of music of school days. Jeans were often combined with t-shirts with colorful prints or shirts tucked in a special way. Sneakers were comfortable but took some getting used to. The squeaking was sometimes annoying, but added character. Each step in the new shoes was perceived as confident and bold. The image was complemented with bright accessories and sometimes a colorful hairstyle. These details formed a whole style, which is now associated with the era of the 80s. School corridors were filled with the energy of young people striving to be conspicuous. The sound of crunching and creaking was part of this atmosphere, making every day special. Pairs of jeans and sneakers became favorite closet items that were kept and treasured for years. They connected generations and told a story of a time when fashion was vibrant and expressive. Reebok sneakers and acid wash jeans were not just clothes, but a symbol of an entire culture and era. School was the arena where these sounds became part of history and memories. They were youth, freedom, and the spirit of change. This music of footsteps and fabric creates a sense of movement and life. The tingling anticipation of handing out purple copies of tests in class, printed on a mimeograph machine with that pungent, sweet-smelling smell. Purple copies of tests were a special part of the high school experience that combined fear and hope. The paper printed on the mimeograph had a distinctive odor that filled the classroom when assignments were handed out. This pungent, sweet-smelling odor filled the space and was immediately associated with a moment of tension. Each student receiving the worksheet felt a slight tingling sensation, fear of the unknown and hope for success. The coloring on the mimeograph was imperfect, and sometimes faint or blurred letters appeared on the test, adding to the sense of time and place. There was silence in the classroom, interrupted only by the rustling of paper and barely audible breathing. The purple sheets lay before my eyes, evoking concentration and anxiety at the same time. Some students flipped through the test looking for familiar questions, while others silently prepared for the challenge. Sometimes the questions seemed strange or unpredictable, which added to the thrill of the experience. An atmosphere of volatility and uncertainty hung in the air, making every minute precious. Some hid the test under their desks to sneak answers from their neighbors later, which was part of the school's trickery. The tingling anticipation was a mixture of excitement and fear that was memorable for a long time. Memories of mimeograph tests have connected generations of students. Each copy was a small challenge that built character and coping skills. The moment was part of the daily routine, yet meaningful. It was associated with childhood, learning, and growing up. The smell and feel in the hands are particles of time that bring back the school days. Purple tests are symbols of discipline and first serious achievements. Their memory is alive in details, smells, and emotions. A mixture of terror and excitement when watching Poltergeist or A Nightmare on Elm Street on videotape for the first time at a sleepover with friends. Watching Poltergeist or A Nightmare on Elm Street on videotape at a sleepover is an experience that combines fear and excitement. In a dark room lit only by the TV screen, every sound grew louder and the shadows grew scarier. The tape rumbled as it rewound, creating a special atmosphere of anticipation and mystery. Each frightening moment was accompanied by tense silence and then an explosion of laughter or a quiet sigh of relief. Fear was mixed with excitement. These movies were a challenge that you wanted to go through with your friends. Nightly viewings became a kind of ritual of growing up and testing one's courage. The atmosphere of the room was filled with the smell of popcorn, sweet drinks, and slightly cool air conditioner air. Outside the house, the night seemed even darker and more mysterious. The sounds of the movie permeated the space, making my heart beat faster. The moments on the screen stayed in my memory, giving me goosebumps and laughter at the same time. The videotape, with its physical noise and pauses, added realism and intimacy to the experience. When the movie was over, friends would discuss the scenes, sharing impressions and jokes, creating a sense of unity. The experience helped overcome fears and taught them how to deal with excitement. Many recalled these nights as some of the most vivid moments of their childhood. Movies became not just scary movies, but part of personal history and friendships. Movie nights were a time of discovery, daring, and fun. They created a tradition that was passed down from generation to generation. Poltergeist and A Nightmare on Elm Street are symbols of an era filled with mysticism and adventure. Their memories live on in the hearts of those who were part of those nights. The click of the plastic latch on a Walkman cassette player. The click of the plastic latch on a Walkman cassette player opened the door to a private world of music where only your favorite tracks were played. That sound signaled the beginning of a journey into the world of Michael Jackson, Madonna, Duran Duran, and other icons of the 80s. The Walkman was small and light and could be carried everywhere, outdoors to school to the park. The plastic of the case vibrated slightly with the bass, transmitting the music not only to your ears but also to your body. The cassette was often a tape of recordings from the radio or favorite albums, on which every song was carefully recorded. There were times when the tape would curl up inside, and you had to use a pencil to carefully unwind it. The Walkman allowed for privacy, even on a noisy bus or at recess, where everything went quiet. The music from the headphones was like a separate universe that existed only for the listener. The player was often decorated with colorful stickers or covers, reflecting the owner's style. Track playback began with a distinctive click of the play button, followed by a complete immersion in your favorite tunes. It was a moment of freedom when rhythms accompanied walks, workouts, or just everyday activities. It was important to take care of the batteries so that the music would not be interrupted at the most inopportune moment. The Walkman and its click became a symbol of youth culture, bringing new ways of communicating with music. The sounds of the Walkman are remembered forever as a symbol of an era and personal discovery. Its sound has become part of thousands of stories and memories of the joy and emotion of the 80s. The Walkman was a small and lightweight device with great value, allowing you to experience music with your whole body. It made music more accessible and intimate. The click of a latch was the beginning of a story that will forever remain in the hearts of millions. How endless a summer night seemed, sitting on the porch with friends and catching fireflies in a glass jar. The summer night stretched slowly and softly, filled with the scents of herbs and the sounds of nature. Fireflies twinkled like little stars that could be caught and locked in a jar with holes in the lid. This jar became a little magical world filled with living light. The friends sat side by side, trying not to frighten the insects, and the silence was broken only by quiet conversations and light laughter. The flickering fireflies created a play of light and shadow, filling the space with warmth and comfort. Every moment seemed special, as if time had stopped and everything around was imbued with the magic of childhood. These nights were a time of talking about dreams, plans, and secrets shared only by those closest to them. The quiet rustling of leaves and the chirping of grasshoppers provided the sound background for this magic. When a firefly was released into the wild, the moment was filled with awe and respect for nature. The moonlight mixed with the flickering of the insects to create a mesmerizing picture. The jar of fireflies became a symbol of freedom and joy, a small oasis of light in the dark night. These moments were kept in memory as part of a carefree and happy childhood. Summer evenings ended surrounded by night nature, and fireflies were like living talismans. These nights were a little island of childhood that warmed the soul for years to come. The fireflies seemed almost magical creatures that brought peace and happiness. The night on the porch was filled with light, silence, and friendship, leaving the warmest of memories. These moments created a sense of timelessness and dreams. They were part of an irretrievable time when the world seemed big and kind. Fireflies were little guardians of children's joy and magic. The click of the rec button on the boombox when catching a song from the radio and freezing up so as not to mess up the recording. The process of recording a song from the radio on a boombox required complete attention and precision. The rec button sounded like the signal to begin an important mission, to catch your favorite track in its purest form. A mistake meant losing the tune or getting interference, so faltering and focus were mandatory. Radio stations changed songs frequently, and it was necessary to press the button exactly at the moment the first chord sounded. Every sound seemed critical, and the magnetophone would emit a distinctive crackle, adding to the charm of the recording. Cassettes of such recordings were kept as little treasures, playlists of childhood and adolescence. The recording process created a sense of personal choice and creation, as each song could be listened to endlessly. Boxes with inscriptions appeared, colored or decorated with drawings telling about the owner's musical preferences. The rec button was the beginning of a musical adventure, creating a collection of hits that could not be found in stores. Memories of recordings from the radio fill the atmosphere of the 80s, a world where music was rare and precious. Listening to these recordings later meant revisiting favorite moments and experiences. The recording process was a small event full of excitement and joy. Each press of rec was a step towards preserving the musical history of one's life. The button symbolized creativity and individuality. The sound became part of the cultural heritage of an entire generation. Recording from the radio brought friends together and helped share favorite tracks. Clicking the rec button was the beginning of a musical journey and part of the story of the youth of the 80s. This process was a unique way of communicating with music and time. The feeling of real magic when you first enter the arcade with flashing lights and the sounds of Pac-Man and Galaga. The arcade opened like a portal into a world of light, sound, and excitement. The entrance was accompanied by flickering screens, neon signs, and the sound of falling coins. The sounds of Pac-Man and Galaga filled the space with energy and drive. Each slot machine offered its own challenges, requiring dexterity and reaction. Glowing buttons and joysticks beckoned to test their strength and skills. The atmosphere was saturated with the spirit of competition and friendly fights. Games became a reason to meet and socialize with friends. Flashing screens and electronic melodies created a unique holiday atmosphere. The arcade hall was not just a place for games, but a space where dreams and heroes were born. Winning or losing in Pac-Man was memorable for a long time. Every step in this hall opened up new possibilities and experiences. Sounds and lights accompanied every button, press and joystick movement. This experience was the first introduction to video games and new technologies. The arcade room left vivid memories and feelings of excitement. This is where the culture of gamers and technology fans was born. Games combined simplicity and excitement, turning time into an adventure. The arcade was a place where you could forget about time and immerse yourself in fantasy. Each game offered a different world and story, giving the joy of discovery. The feeling of being in control of the virtual space was true magic. These moments became the foundation for the development of the entire video game industry. The sounds and lights of the arcade remained in the memory as a symbol of the era in childhood. The feeling of alarm when the words, "This is a test of the emergency broadcast system," suddenly appeared on the television. The feeling of alarm when those words appeared on the screen instantly changed the atmosphere in the room. This is a test of the emergency broadcast system. Sounded like a warning, making you stop and listen. The TV was going into test mode with a shrill siren and a monotone announcer's voice. It was an alarm, a symbol of the Cold War, a reminder that the world could change at any moment. Parents who heard the words exchanged worried glances, and the children fell silent, not fully understanding what was happening, but sensing the tension. This is a test of the emergency broadcast system. Sounded like a reminder of the fragility of the world and the need to be prepared for the unexpected. This moment was imprinted in my memory and left a feeling of slight fear and tension for a long time. The feeling of an invisible boundary when you hear, "Be home before dark," and try to stretch the evening to the last streak of light. The feeling of an invisible boundary came from the moment of hearing that stern yet gentle call, "Be home before dark." The evening became a measure of freedom that one wanted to stretch as long as possible. The sun was sinking slowly, and every ray seemed like a last chance for adventure. "Be home before dark" was becoming a secret rule known to all neighborhood children. The sense of an invisible boundary filled the air with slight excitement and anticipation. As dusk fell, the streets emptied, and each step toward home seemed like a transition from a world of freedom to a world of responsibility. "Be home before dark" sounded like an invisible contract between children and adults. The soft warmth and coziness from a bright patterned sweater that itches but smells like home and Christmas. The soft warmth and coziness from a brightly colored patterned sweater wasn't just clothing. It was the smell of childhood and the holidays. The sweater with patterns of Christmas trees, reindeer, and snowflakes kept my body warm, even when the wool lightly pricked my skin. The soft warmth and coziness of such a sweater was associated with family evenings by the fireplace, the aroma of hot chocolate, and the sounds of Christmas songs. It held the warmth of the hands of the mother and grandmother who knitted it or picked it out. The soft warmth and coziness from the sweater created an atmosphere of security and happiness. Even though a little itchy, this sweater always brought a smile and a sense of home. The feeling of freedom and trust when biking around the neighborhood without a phone, GPS, or helmet, just wind, pedals, and street. A sense of freedom and trust filled every moment as the bike became the key to new adventures. The wind in my face and the sound of spinning wheels created a feeling of complete control and independence. Parents would let you go far away, trusting that you would find your way home without modern gadgets. The feeling of freedom and trust was evident in every kilometer traveled without fear and unnecessary questions. Not wearing a helmet seemed natural, and it didn't occur to anyone to worry about safety the way they do today. The bicycle was a symbol of growing up and personal freedom, and the street was a space for discovery and friendship. Every new place in the neighborhood was like a secret to keep to yourself. Returning home was always accompanied by a feeling of satisfaction and a slight fatigue. These trips remained in my memory as moments of carefree and real happiness. Remembering these moments, you realize that time changes many things, but true memories remain with us forever. These simple joys and small details made childhood unique and inimitable, filling it with warmth and meaning. If you recognize yourself in these stories, it means that a part of that era lives in your heart and continues to inspire you. After all, it is through such memories that we keep the connection with the past and pass it on to the future. Are you ready to preserve this atmosphere and discover even more colorful moments? Subscribe to the channel. Together we will return to the warmest and most heartfelt pages of the past.